What's going on, guys? Today I am going to show you how to do masking. I'm going to show you some tips and the techniques that I use the most when I'm doing some sort of extraction or anything like that. So this is what we're going to end up with. This is already masked, as you can see. That's the layer that's she is extracted, and well, let's start from the beginning. So I'm going to delete that layer and start from scratch. First is how to get your basic selection. It used to be more complicated, but as Photoshop got more advanced and more advanced, selection is, I think, one of the places where it progresses the most and for the better. So first that you can do is the quick selection tool, and I understand that this image is like pretty simple to select. Some are not going to be as simple, but I'm going to show you a fairly new technique that works actually pretty well, which we can't always say about Photoshop techniques. So basically just click anywhere where you want to select, and it's going to select what it's more like it, and then you can just hold shift, and you see the plus icon appear on that magic wand icon, and you will be adding to the selection. If you want to subtract, just press I think it's control on PC or alt on oh no, I don't know what it's on PC, but in Mac it's alt. So I do think it's control on PC, and you will like deselect. um, so that's pretty much it for the magic one. You can also change the tolerance, so instead of clicking so much, let me deselect, you can press command and control D to deselect. So instead of having to click more frequently, you can increase the tolerance, and it will select more of the tones that look like what you are selecting. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is going to the select menu and going for color range. And this works better if you have photographed the subject in a way where it's easy, where you knew that you were going to extract them, and so you just select the color of whatever you wanted to extract, of whatever you want to extract, to select, and it's going to turn into that color. And you can do the same thing. You can press shift and plus to select more, but in this case it's not the best option because it goes by color, and it doesn't it doesn't respect shapes and boundaries too much. So you say it's selecting the background, and it's also selecting part of the forehead, because it's closer in color and tone to what to what the background is. And so I'm not going to select that. Having said that, if you're doing photography, if you're doing fine refine edges and selection, what we're doing right now, if you're not doing volume photography like schools or sports, and you know you want to composite, do not composite using a green screen. A green screen is for video, is for a one-click solution, because you're going on, you're shooting something at 24 frames per second. That is not the purpose of most photography composites. I see a lot of people, they think they want to composite, they shoot on green screen, and it only creates more problems when you're extracting the person from the background, especially because you need to be very precise with the lighting so that the green doesn't leak into the hair. So the best way to do is to have a dark gray, a medium dark gray, darker than what we have in here. Just a tip, just a heads up, it just occurred to me. And like I said, with the caveat is, unless you're doing sports or a photo booth or something where you have to put them on a different background really really quick, but not for high-end stuff. High-end compositing, you shoot on a gray background. Anyways, so that's one way. That's the quick one option. It's another one. You could of course use the pen tool, but that will take too long, and it's not necessary, especially with the new advancements in Photoshop. Now the quick one tool depends. It's really going to its efficiency is going to depend on how well you lit the background and the background choices that you have. But there's a new way that came up. I think it was in Photoshop CC 2015, maybe CC 2014, where maybe you did not maybe you do not have such a clean background. For that, I'm going to go to another image to show you how better it is and how worse these other techniques that I just showed you work. So I'm gonna go to another photo. We're not gonna extract this photo, but this is just for comparison. Say I want to use the magic wand. I think I've been calling it quick wand, and I can go and select, and it's gonna do a good job, but it's gonna take too long. Maybe even if I increase the tolerance to say 50%, now it's selecting the dress and stuff like that. It's not gonna work really well. The selecting by color range on the other one, it was still usable, and here is just pretty much impossible to use. So I think the best technique that came out just recently is going through to select by focus area. What this does is it detects the pixels that are out of focus and is going to select the pixels that are in focus. Now, because I already tried this one, it came up almost perfectly. They come up, say 80-90%. The way you refine this selection, it's to just do a swipe with the brush, and it's just gonna keep going forward. Oops, I went too far. And it's the same. You click Option or Alt to deselect, and you don't need to do anything to add, because that's what the brush does. But just paint normally with the brush and it will be adding stuff. Like if I do that, it's gonna add that. I press Alt, and you don't need to like paint, you just need to like be marking with the brush the areas that you don't want, and it's going to do it for you. And the more you do it, the more it learns. And for this basic this step that we're going, I'm not going for perfection. I'm just going for the most basic image extraction that I can get. All the all the detail work, it's coming afterwards. So anyways, just as you see, just with a quick just by going with the focus area, it selected her pretty much almost instantly. I just have to refine some very specific areas and stuff like that, but other than that, it's working pretty well. All right, so I'm gonna cancel this and I'm gonna go back to my original image. So we're gonna extract this photo from the background. I am going to use I think I can use the magic wand tool on the test that I did earlier. I think I did the by focus by focus area or whatever they call it. But let's just go by the quick wand tool. Oops. And just the hardest part to redefine are lines that are supposed to be perfect straight or perfect curves. So in here you see it's working pretty well, and it's make sure you have anti-alias selected. That way it will like smooth out a little bit of the selection. And just keep in mind that we're doing it backwards. We're selecting the background. We don't want the background. So when we're adding stuff to the selection, we want to make sure that we remove the selection from the subject. It's a little bit backwards, but that's because we're placing the selection on the background and then we're going to inverse it. But anyways, so you see this looks smooth enough. I think when I first did it, before I started recording, when I did it with the focus area, this was a little bit more rigid, and it gave me some troubles. Let me see if I can duplicate that. Maybe I'll try both selection methods so that you see what I'm talking about. All right, so now I'm going to go to select and inverse to actually select her and not select the background, because we want her. We don't want the background. And now I'm going to go to select and mask to be able to redefine the selection. So I go to select and mask. Yeah, I think it's almost the same now that I see it. The rigidness, and this I'm gonna fix. So I'm gonna keep it like this so that I'm able to fix it the way I did and show you that process. Okay, so now we have this selection, and we have basically you're gonna have most likely two two main areas when you're doing this with portraits. One is the hair, and the other is the rest of the body. And we do this separately. Normally, what you will used to do before is you will duplicate the layer and do the hair on one layer, and then do the rest of the body in another layer to keep it more precise, and be able to manipulate those independently. I don't do that. I don't like having selections split onto two layers, because then with some of the other tools that we're going to use, it really messes us up. So I'm going to show you a technique that I use to where I'm still dealing with them independently, but still keeping them on the same layer. And this is one of the techniques that I came up, over the years. So we're going to first work on the hair, so that I can show you later how trying to work on everything at the same time messes up the hair. And that's pretty much the main reason why we're working on this independently. All right. So the first is very simple. By the way, they changed this dialogue in CC 2015. I think it's 2015.5 where they changed the dialogue. Maybe 2015. I'm not sure, but if you see something different, I'm not gonna use many of the new things that are in here. In fact, I don't think I might only use it one just to show you. But everything else should have been on the previous versions of Photoshop. So the first thing they add is they have these brush icons in here to keep to redefine the selection by without any sort of algorithm more than add or subtract. So before, you used to have the hair that we used to refine the hair, it was on this side. Now it's on this side, and it's the one that that has those little lines right here that look like hair. This brush is new in like I said, in this new update. Not new when I'm posting the video, but the newest. And it's just a brush tool where you can add or remove selection. So for example, before what I will used to do before going into this dialogue, after making my first selection, the one that we did with the quick selection tool, is I will go and fix spots that were obviously wrong. And no, I don't have to. No, I just go straight to this dialogue where I can fix it. So for example, this spot right here where it didn't catch the side of her body, I'm just going to remove this area right here and this selection, and just go again. I have the brush, I press Alt to turn that plus into a minus so that I remove from the selection. The what I'm going for right now, I'm not going for something that looks good. I'm actually want something that looks as bad as the rest of what's around it, as hard and rigid. Because when I apply these sliders, those are going to be applied to the entire to the entire edge. And if I make one edge right now prettier, it's going to be affected differently, and the edge is not going to look the same. So right now I'm not going for pretty, I'm just going for same of the same nonsense that we have, basically. And this you could still do outside, on a mask, on the selection. Right now I'm just doing it here because I can. I do feel that I have more control of the brush outside of this dialogue. So I still, even though it's new and it's easier, in some cases I might still like the old way better of doing this small refinement outside of this dialogue, after doing the selection. But anyways, all right. But right now we're focusing on her hair, not on that. So I just wanted to show you that's basically the new thing that they added. And there's like the algorithms change a little bit, but everything is mostly the same. Now in here, let me just show you, in case you're new to this dialogue, in here you have different ways of seeing the selection. This doesn't affect the selection at all. It just shows it to you in different scenarios, so that you're more able to see if you're doing a good job or a bad job. So you have onion skin. You might not be able to tell in here, but it's basically what you have selected is at 100% opacity, and the rest is on a transparency. Because it's gray on this image, you're not seeing it very well. But if it was the other photo that I showed you, that it was outside, you will see the other area at, like, in this case, 20% opacity. It's not 20% selected, it's 0% selected. It's just showing you a little bit through so that you see where you're going. And then we have marching ants. That's just basically showing you the selection, the rough selection, where it goes. The overlay, this is if you were going for a quick selection thing, and that's what you will see, the overlay. And you can also change the opacity, like you see outside of this dialog. You can see it on a black background, on a white background, on black and white, which is how you will see the mask, and then on the layers, which is how you will see on the other layers. So you're seeing my darker gray background layer that I showed you at the beginning of the video, you're seeing through it in this through this image. This is good if you are working with someone who already knows what background they're putting they're extracting that person into, or if it's your own project. This is a good thing to have, because some things you might get away with not being so perfect, depending on if you have a lighter background or a darker background. Right now I'm gonna work this image so that it works with every background, so that you know what to do and how to do all of these techniques. But anyways, I'm gonna do the black background just so that it doesn't hurt my eyes too much. And now I'm gonna go and paint over the edges. So now the first step, the mentality was going for an overall shape. This next step is to go for a little bit more of detail. We're still not going for perfection. I just want a better selection on the edges of the hair, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna go, and with this with the hair, no, with the edge refinement tool, I think that's what it's called. Yeah, refine edge brush tool. On all versions of Photoshop, remember, it's gonna be on this side right here by this radius slider. Anyways, so I'm just gonna go over where the edge of the hair is, and the Photoshop algorithm is going to detect the edges, and the contrast, and it's going to give us a better selection. Now, you might think that in some instances it's making it worse. I'm going to show you why it's not the case. So in here, we're not going for what's going selected and what's getting deselected, because we're going to bring those areas that are going away that I don't want to go away. We're going to bring them back later. I just want a better selection. So for example, in here, we got rid of some of this area right here that we definitely want if you see the original, but we're getting a better edge where we see the small hairs getting selected to different levels of opacity. That's what we want. I'm gonna go inside in there a little bit better, because I forgot to do it the first time and I was having a hard time. Okay, so now I'm gonna show you what it looks on the masks so that you see where we're going. So you see, we're getting a better selection now of the hair. We're not worrying about the body. The hair is now looking, orders of magnitude better. These areas right here that are going darker, I am going to fix, but that's for a different step outside of this dialog. And we're seeing some areas, and maybe you're not going to be able to see them on the video, but some areas right here are on the edge are not completely black, and they're going to look muddy depending on the background that you're using. So we're going to fix that too. Okay, but now we're getting a better selection. We might be able to do something like increase the contrast or something like that. I don't know. I didn't do it the first time. I will see if it helps us. Oops. I need to stop doing that. Okay. So I'm gonna show you these sliders. I use them more with the body. So right now I'm not gonna explain them. I'm just gonna like go over see if they help me a little bit. Yeah, they usually don't work well at all with the edge refinement tool. That, at least that's my my findings. Okay, so I think we're ready to move away from this from this dialogue right now. We're gonna go back to it when we work on the body, but for now, the hair, I think we're done for here. All the other refinements are going to be outside. One thing is that if you're a little bit familiar with this, or if you watch other videos, there's this option called decontaminate colors. It usually works very well, and when we don't have a lot of hair sticking out that we need to bring back, it helps you, because it kind of like, it makes the extra selection, I don't know if you're able to see, it makes these extras right here, where we define the hair, it makes them look more like it borrows the color from the bigger selection, from the more normal selection, but it messes up the things that we're trying to bring back. It removes all the texture. So because of the techniques that we're going to use, I'm not going to use this one. But if you're not seeing a lot of this in your samples, definitely try it. I'm not going to do it, and I'm actually going to bring those colors back in, later on, without having to use the contaminate color. Anyway, just because I can, I'm going to change this output to layer mask, and I'm going to move on. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to continue. All right. Now in here I can go over the body, or I can keep refining the hair. It really doesn't affect it. So all right, let's refine the body, just so that we continue on with the same dialogue. All right, so now that we accepted those changes, I'm going to go back and change the body, and you're gonna see why I'm doing it in 2 steps in a little while. All right, the first thing I see is that I need these edges to come closer a little bit towards the inside. You see this light right here, that's light, that it's, and it's also, this image has a narrow depth of field, so it's going to be harder than as if the image didn't have a narrow depth of field. If the f-stop, if the depth of field is narrow enough that the edge is sharp, it's actually way easier. But now we have to simulate the original depth of field. That's one thing. The other one is that this needs to be brought in, and because it's on a narrow depth of field, some of that light is leaking in, so we're going to remove that. In here, I think we're going to have to do a selection to smooth this out manually. I don't think this dialog is going to help me, but I do want the overall softness, and again, the depth of field, to at least have it so that it helps me when I do this part right here manually. And this part, I don't think I'm gonna have a problem. Maybe I'm gonna have to do this manually, but I won't have to do a selection because it's not as smooth as this part right here. Anyways, so the first thing that we're gonna do is I'm going to feather the edges to simulate that depth of field. And I'm gonna go, I don't know, I'm gonna go to, say, 8. Now I'm going to shift the edge towards the negatives in here, right here, and you see what this does is it shrinks the selection. If I go the opposite way, it's going to expand the selection, and you see we are already losing that weird edge right there, and it's probably going to eat up this part of the image as I keep switching the edge, and I'm just gonna paint that in back manually within the mask. Smoothness, what this does is edges that are a little bit rigid, it removes, straight, angled, and hard edges. It's not very precise, and it messes up where we have angles right here, so I don't go very far with this one, and you might not even see a big difference right now. So I'm just gonna leave it like that. I don't know, I think even that's too much, and this uses a lot of computing power, so you're gonna need a powerful graphics card for this, or your computer's gonna be a little bit slow. So I'm just gonna keep it at 11. I think that's what I had it before, and I'm gonna keep shifting the edge until I don't see anything in here. This is going to be my my test for when I get a good selection. Oops. Okay, I think that's good enough. I might feather a little bit more. All right, so this looks okay, this looks okay, this doesn't look so good, and this looks great. And you can see the show original, you can see the before and after. So that's the, and I'm focusing on this area right here. I'm gonna show it. Okay, there you go. And now see, look at all the mess that is doing with the hair. This is why I do it on two separate steps, because otherwise I try to get the hair right, the body goes all awkward. I try to help the body a little bit and the hair goes awkward. So that's why. And now I'm gonna show you how I actually separate this. So now I'm gonna click OK, and it's gonna bring me back, and it did add that effect to the hair. So I'm gonna go to my history panel. I always have it right here. If not, if you don't have it, go to window, go to history, and it's gonna pop up. I'm gonna use the history brush. Essentially what the history brush allows you to do is to paint in a step in your editing history, painting in with a brush. So if we go back in history, we see our selection and stuff like that. I don't want to go too far, but you know what I mean. I'm gonna keep going forward, and so on this step everything was looking good, but the body wasn't, and on this step the body was looking good, but the hair wasn't. So because there's less to paint if I paint in the body as opposed to painting the hair, I'm gonna go back to where the hair looks good, and I'm gonna click on this right here, this little checkbox right here, and it adds the icon for the history brush, and I'm going to paint in the history brush of the step that is forward into this step that is backwards. If I were doing, if I can also do it the opposite way, where I go to the most forward step. I don't know why that is in there. Anyways, if I go to the newest step, and I can click on the previous step and paint back in the good hair. It all depends. Like if it's someone with short hair and it's less to paint in the hair, I do it that way. If not, I do it the opposite way. But what I mean is that you can pretty much go back and forth in time. That's what I'm going for. That's what I'm trying to explain. So I am painting with the history brush and it's not doing anything. Why not? Make sure you have the layer mask selected and not the layer itself. I kind of messed that up. Here I'm still seeing some of that white come through, but I'm not. I mean, I am going to fix that manually, I guess. There are other ways of doing it, but okay, here that's where that kind of meets in there, and it looks a little bit off. But again, the original was, it is blurry. The original, it has a low depth of field, and you can see right here how this arm has a shallower depth of field than her breast, and that's because it's backwards more into the camera. That's why the breast looks, the selection looks fine, but the arm doesn't. So you also need to take that into account, where if it's farther away and the depth of field it's narrower, that you need to make that even a little bit blurrier. Because it's a small area, I'm going to do it, just with the regular brush tool. But you can go back to the select and mask dialog, and keep going and keep going and going, and just go for those areas. Okay, I think I have somewhere here. Okay, so now I'm going to make this look a little bit better. So I'm going to use the pen tool for that, just to make a nice smooth selection of this area right here, so that I can then just bring in the brush and paint in, and the pen tool is going to be kind of like my stencil. That's what I'm trying to make right now. So I'm just gonna go over the edges and just make this selection right there. And I only care about that part, so this right here doesn't matter. I only care about this edge right here. And I might have gone a little bit in too much, so I'm just gonna, oops, no, not that. Just going to modify one of you. There you go. Okay, that's a little bit better. All right, so now I'm gonna make this a selection, and because I know that the the feather that I used was around 8 pixels. I'm gonna probably use the same 8 pixels just to make it look the same, like I said. Okay, now I am selecting the inside. So if I paint the layer mask in with the brush tool, it's going to start working on her body, but I want the outside, so I'm going to inverse this selection. So select, inverse. And if you don't know about layer mask, I have a video on how to work with layer mask. Now I have my brush at 100% flow, 20% opacity, 20%, 50%, 30%. Those are all fine. I don't want them to be 100%. I kind of want to work it in slowly. So I'm just gonna, oops, don't have the right brush. You make sure you use a soft brush, and make sure you are removing, so painting with black. And I saw that there was some of the white it's still picking out, so this helps me remove that as well. Okay, now I'm going to deselect this, command and control, no, alt D, no, command D, there you go. Okay, now that looks way better. You can see the where's the before and after? Oh, it's too much. Can't see the before because those things are getting in the way, but you get the point. Let me go back. I'm gonna remove this healing brush icon, no, history brush icon from here, so that we can get rid of that history state, because we don't need it anymore. All right. Now, I am going to pretty much do the same thing I was doing with the pen tool, but now I don't really need it. I'm just going over the edge with soft brush. I'm painting it out. Okay, and I'm doing the same on the other side. And you can do the selection if you want, if you don't feel that you have this steady hand. Okay, and now I'm going to bring back this part right here that it's supposed to be less blurry than the other areas. And I keep seeing this selection right here. There's some issue here. Okay, let me work this in again. And I just remember a good way of getting rid of this halo-ish effect. So you see now that looks better. This we're gonna fix in a little while. Now the selection is starting to look a little bit better. Nope. Nope. There you go. Okay. We can disable the layer mask, and you can see our progress. I might fix this just because I know how it used to look. But you know, this right here, people are not gonna know if they don't see the original, but I do. So okay, now the way to fix the hair, which is the most important part, or the part where some people have more difficulty. So now we have some areas right here that went transparent that were not supposed to go transparent, and some where we could use a little bit more contrast and pop up those stray hairs that were selected out. So I'm gonna select click option and click on the layer mask so that I can see what the actual layer mask looks like. Now don't forget that this layer mask is based on pixels, and just like when we were going over the layer mask video or the dodging and burning video, these are still pixels that can be I think they can be liquefied, they can be painted on, etc. Having that in mind, we're going to use dodging and burning to redefine this mask, and I'm going to show you what I mean. So we have the dodging and burning, not the tool that we use for retouching, but the actual dodging and burning tools that we have here in Photoshop. to be able to paint in the brush strokes without messing up the selection. For example, we have the dodge tool, and then you have the range, highlight, midtones, and shadows. For this, the white is the highlight, exposure 22, that's fine. Again, those exposures and sliders like that, it depends on if you see it's going too strong, reduce it. If you see it's going too slow, increase it. That's pretty much the same rule for every kind of slider in Photoshop. I'm gonna go here and I'm dodging the selection. I'm gonna select a better brush. Apparently I have the wrong one. Yes, I have the wrong one. That's another brush that we're gonna go over in a little while. Okay, so I'm going over with a really soft brush with the, what was it called? The dodge tool. And because it's the dodge tool as opposed to the regular brush tool, I can go over these edges and not worry about messing up the main selection. And you can also do this when you're looking at the image on the, let's call it normal mode. I just think it looks, it's easier to visualize it in this way. Now, we don't have a lot of white areas leaking onto the black areas. I mean, I can see it, but like I said, you might not be able to. But just for the sake of it, we go to the burn tool, we're in shadows, exposure 18%, and we're going around these edges, and it's the same thing, but the opposite, where I'm deselecting areas and not messing up with the not messing up with the actual parts that we want to have selected. I'm gonna go over that when I'm looking at the normal mode, just to not make mistakes. But you see right here, we needed a little bit more contrast, and it's easier to get rid of these areas that we know it's behind the hair. And with the regular brush tool, it will just be flat black, not taking into account any of these other values. So okay, I think I want a normal view just to know that I'm going the right direction. Damn it. Yeah, okay. Okay. Okay, now there's yet another step that we're gonna do in the hair, and I don't know if I want to do this with the dodging and burning or with that step. So I'm just gonna try it. Dodge is going to add to the selection. It kind of works. No, it's too much. No, I'm gonna do this in a different method. But in here, I think I am going to add. Yeah, because this was a strong highlight, I think. Yes, it was. Okay. So if you see areas that are like that you think should have a little bit more contrast, it like right here, it's probably because it wasn't, it needs more on the dodge area. So this, like, we're literally dodging and burning, but with selections instead of with actual the pixels and stuff like that. So the dodging, it's not lightening the area per se, but it's bringing in the pixels that were transparent or hidden. And I'm gonna go over how to do that color decontamination that I was talking about. Okay, I think for now this is as good as we're gonna get, but this area here, I think we can get rid of it by dodging it. I mean, by burning it. I think we can get rid of that halo-ish, yeah, by burning it a little bit more. There you go. Yeah, so I'm gonna burn all that. I'm not worried too much about that. We're gonna do that again manually. Okay, we're getting there. It's getting better. So we see what we have right now. Okay, and to be honest, all of these stray hairs, you will probably want to get rid of them if you're doing some kind of like beauty retouching, especially this area here. This right here, I think when I edited this image for my portfolio, I removed all of this, but I'm keeping them in here to show you what a good hair selection would look like. Now there's another step that we have to take for the hair, which is the most problematic. You see all of these areas right here that they kind of don't look very refined, and they even look like a little bit noisy. We're going to manually add in the hair, and for that I created a custom brush, which is essentially I just modified one of the default brushes. I added some size jitter to the shape dynamics. Of course, it's being controlled by the pen pressure, the density, the diameter, a little bit of smoothing, and 8% spacing. And that's pretty much my hair brush. If you have others, they'll probably work fine. Even the default brush is gonna work fine. We're still working only on the layer mask. We're not adding any pixels, any new colors, anything false yet to the image. So um, and this actually also works well where you're getting rid of stray hairs. I do this, I just don't do it as too much. I just do a little bit of it. I'm gonna show you what I mean. So I'm gonna go with like a 7 size brush. Oh, but I need to go to the regular brush. My bad. Okay, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know, we'll see. And I'm gonna go with, I think 20% opacity is fine. It's not that. I'm gonna be painting in the mask. So what I'm doing is adding those highlights manually so that we see them better, and so that the edges of her head, they don't look rigged. They look like there's hair there, you know what I mean, that so that it looks more realistic. Like I said, I do this when I'm gonna reduce the hardness to like 20 something percent. I do this also when I'm retouching hair and I'm getting rid of all of these stray hairs. I go in and I add back in some of this right here, and I go like this, very subtle. Right now I'm not gonna go subtle because I'm keeping the all these stray hairs. And you can do, sometimes I do it with 100% opacity. I'm just going slower because those hairs that are going into the background are getting blurred more into the background, and they have the effect of a lower opacity. So in this, where you see these weird selections, especially with this kind of hair, this works best and better with a curly hair, because that's going to be really harder to select and to retouch and to do all sorts of things. So whenever I see this, like where the selection looks weird, I'm just gonna go over this and kind of like assess it, you know. So these are all hair strokes that I'm pretty much making up, that were not there, but that I'm doing them to make the selection look a little bit more realistic and refined. So unless this like crazy hair was part of the look, you will not go as extreme as I am. But you see what I mean right here on this edge, how it looks a little bit weird. I just go in and add some of this. And again, respecting the depth of field, I am going to be smoothing out this hair right here, so that it matches with the depth of field that is supposed to have been shot with, if it had been all this done in camera. And that's going to straight. I'm going to remove them. So I'm pretty much just build up on what's in here. I hope that it's looking better in your screen. And I vary the sizes. Obviously bigger hairs are gonna be the ones that go in front. Smaller ones will be the ones in the background. Okay. And this looks odd right now. I'm going to do that color decontamination. Just bear in mind. I don't think I went up this far. Yeah. All right. So here, right here, you see this looks a little bit weird. It actually also looks like the texture is kind of gone. So this also brings back hair texture a little bit. Okay, and yeah, I'm just following her part. I'm following her hairline, just making this look a little bit more natural. Okay, now I'm gonna go over this. This is what I mean with I just follow what's already here, just trying to make this look, more real, giving the illusion that the selection was more precise and stuff like that. Just hiding all of this weird, like, I don't even want to call them mistakes, but you know what I mean. Here I might go to, I guess, 30% opacity because the hair is more out here, you know what I mean? It's more, it's not so much in the background as these pieces right here. And don't be scared of rotating the image. Shift R if you feel that it's going to help you. Now we go back to the brush. Going the other way. No, that's actually making it worse. I think the straight up was better for this. Zoom in. No, like this. And I'm pressing Alt Command C to go back in undo. So you see this weird like neon halo-ish edges. These are the ones that I'm focusing on minimizing and getting rid of and all that kind of stuff. So I'm following this strand right here in the background. I'm making it a little bit larger for the front, making it smaller when I'm working on the foreground. Just with the bracket keys, I use those as opposed to, for my tablet doesn't even have those buttons, but even the ones that do, I never found them to be very easy to use on the Intuos Pro. You know, that little scroll wheel or whatever it has to change the size of the brush. I never liked that whenever I had the chance of using one of those. Okay. So you see now the selection is looking a little bit better. The white highlight in this, it's a little bit too strong. But we're fixing that too. And the depth of field. That's what I'm thinking right now. That whenever I have to think that what I'm going to do next. So that's what's going to my mind right now. That I don't have to. I better not forget about those. So I hope you're seeing the trend of making these selections look better, look more organic. Okay. And sometimes these subtle details are where, what break the image or make the image. Here we have hairs that went into the, that were super in the highlight and just got completely deselected. So I'm going to bring those back like this. Just I'm making small brush strokes right now because they're going like to a small place and then hiding behind her hair. Try not to do that with bigger areas. Zoom out and do larger brush strokes because then they're gonna look weird if you don't, I mean. So I got rid of those weird things, just bringing that in. Okay, not like that, yeah. Don't want to zoom in too much. If you zoom out too much, then you also start going out of this edge too much. So all of these you could also clean and get rid with the dodging and burning if that's your purpose. Again, my purpose is not to clean the hair, is to make a hair selection that looks authentic. But in most cases, all of this will be gone, and I'll be just doing what I'm doing, just like 70% less exaggerated, less strokes, to still make it look better. So that's a tip for hair selection. So I think in here I am going to rotate it. There you go. That just works better for me. Alright, I think I am done with that. I mean, see, we have a much better selection now. If you like that white highlight, or maybe if it's going on a background where it doesn't affect you that much, you could leave it like that. Now we're going to do the color decontamination. But before that, I am going to fix the depth of field. So you can do it several ways. I'm just going to do it the easy way, which is going to select filter, blur, Gaussian blur, excuse me, and then just add the blur. I'm only focusing on the hair right now. I'm not focusing on anything else, like any of the body or anything like that. And just so that it looks like it's surroundings, but not so much so that you destroy all your work. So I think 2.1 works fine, and you can see it before and after. I'm gonna zoom in. So you see now, you see right here, it matches the depth of field. Obviously, if it's not that strong, you might not even do this. I still recommend doing a little bit, just so that it will smooth out the edges. So now it looks more like part of the image. Now we go back to the layer mask, and this is what we see. All these hairs that we added that make this transition a little bit more smooth. Okay, now let's work on that color decontamination. That's easy. We just add a new layer, and if you have seen my videos on how to even out the skin tones, it's pretty much the exact same process. I'm going to change this to color, this blending mode, and I am going to paint in, and I'm going to paint in with a regular soft brush tool that doesn't change sizes with my Wacom tablet. I'm just going to sample a color, opacity 30%, and just paint in. And if 30% is too strong, just lower it, or do whatever you want. Okay, and just you might not be noticing it, but just keep sampling from the places surrounding the areas that you want sampled. All right, now I think we have this little area right here that I want to add to our selection. So if you see, it might be a subtle change, but that pretty much did the job of the color decontamination without bringing the issues that it brought. Because when I was doing the dodging and burning, that's what you will see. Instead of bringing up the hair, it will just be like a blob of color. That's how it works. And if you're not doing dodging and burning after that, it's fine. If you do it this way, now you know. Let's, just for the sake of it, I think that's a part of the background, if I'm not mistaken. It might not be. Now I'm doubting. What do you think? Now let's skip it. But anyways, there was one thing that I didn't do because I didn't have to for this video. But if you have an edge, say one of these hairs or something like that, or if you add more hair, um, or something that you do that it's too sharp, you can bring in the blur tool. And let's do this for some of these hairs right here. You can bring in the blur tool and just blur it out. Like I said, these masks are just pixels, just like everything else. And I'm blurring it. The strength might not be enough. Um, so if you want to be even more precise and go, the hairs that are further away in the depth of field to be more blurred than the other ones, you can do this. You're not seeing too much progress, but believe me, it's there. And that's pretty much it. So I showed you how to do the basic selection. You can do the quick one tool. You can use the pen tool, which I didn't show you, but I only showed you a little bit. And you can use by color range. You can use by focus area. Focus area is the newest. I think is the better one. You can also go to just straight and mask. I'm gonna show you that another one. It's fairly simple. And then you refine the hair. You refine the body. You use the history brush to separate those, to paint back and forth these different edits. And then you just keep working on the mask with dodging and burning. Would you manually add in hair from the mask, and there you have it. And this mask works with every background. So we have a white background, we have a dark gray background, we have a dark background. It works with everything. That's it for now. Let me show you the other one that I didn't show you, which is this select and mask. It just basically goes straight. It goes straight to the to this dialog, and you can just kind of like what we were doing with the focus area selection. You just go and paint in, and it should just I think it's the quick selection. Yeah, you go with the quick selection button, and just like when we did with the focus area, it starts selecting little by little. It's a little bit smoother than focus area. I just think it's a little bit slower. But the upside is that when you're done, you're already on this dialogue. So if you're working on something where you have to be kind of like fast paced, this might be the best option. I don't know, just experiment with everything. And that's it for now on this video. Other videos that I have on working on, I do have some news about the channel, but I'm saving those for later. I am going to start doing a series on color grading. That's what a lot of people ask me, even non-photographers, even people who just want to add cool Instagram like edits to their photos. So I'm gonna go on, I think it's gonna be like a 2 or 3 part series on that. So be on the lookout for that. So subscribe, do all that stuff. Let me know in the comments if there's something that you want me. If there's any questions that you have, I might answer on text. If it's complicated enough, I might do a separate video on it. But other than that, that's it.